Hi everybody, welcome to Season 6, Episode 13 of The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, the chairman and owner of Peterborough United. And they say that a week is a long time in football. You know, here we are, a win under the belt, a new manager under the, in place. Talk me through your week.
Yeah, really interesting, actually. Well, the FA Cup draw was really unfair, I thought, to get like one of the best teams in League One when we're at a time we're struggling. Because you look at FA Cup and you hope to get like a couple of lower league teams. You win your first couple of rounds, you get 100 grand, 150 grand in kind of prize money and income and helps towards your deficit. You cap all that stuff. And so when we got that draw, I was kind of like, oh, geez. Because we've usually done pretty well in the first couple of rounds. But no, how's the week been? Yeah, really good. Yeah, the new manager started last Wednesday. He wanted all the players off last Wednesday because he wanted to spend Wednesday at the club meeting, seeing the training grounds, meeting all the staff at the training ground. Then obviously he wanted to meet all the staff. He went for lunch with the CEO. Then he went to the stadium, see the pitch. It's funny, the first thing he did when he arrived at the training ground was take me to the pitch. So he wanted to see the pitches, and he was like, he was very, very pleasantly surprised how good the pitches were. And I think it kind of shocked them, that they were in such good condition. We pay a lot of money for our pitches.
You invest a lot in your pitches, don't you?
Yeah, for passing and, play the right football kind of thing. So, and then he did all his press. And then I believe he had his first training session Thursday and Friday. So, and again, that was difficult because some of the players played for the 21s on Tuesday. So they were like off Wednesday, warming down Thursday, whatever way they do it, So he didn't have a full contingent, and he was missing. Jimmy J. Morgan was kind of like had a knock, so he didn't train Thursday and Friday really. Matty Garbutt was kind of trained Friday, and then I think couldn't play or say his ankle, So there was a few like bruises, bumps, and so obviously they picked their first team, and I spoke to him on Friday. Yeah, Friday, really good chat just to see how he's getting on, and him and Ryan, his assistant, were in a hotel, obviously. And they were kind of taken back how welcome they were by everybody at the club, and what a warm feeling it was, and how nice the people were, and so that I think took him back a bit. Enjoyed his first couple of. It's really difficult. Like you turn around and say to him, like, "Oh, what were the 30 players you had in training like for 2 days, and who do you like? Who do you not like? So we didn't even have those conversations. We were just like, he's just running me through what the training was like, and how everyone basically were bought in, and then there was a little, I think Posh Plus put out a little tidbit on his training sessions, so that was interesting to watch. And then obviously wished him well for the game on Saturday. And what was really refreshing about the game is that last year we were bottom in the whole of the EFL for pressing. And we made a real, and this isn't me having to take a go at the previous manager, the coaches, whatever. There was a real concerted effort at the end of the season towards recruiting, towards pre-season. It was all designed about we were going to become high pressing. We were bottom of the league last year, and that had to change. And football's changing, and a lot more teams now press higher up the pitch. And basically, again, I think, going into the FA Cup game, I think we were bottom of the league again, for not just in the league for results, but for pressing. And what was refreshing on Saturday was, it's probably the most enjoyable 45 minutes I've seen this season, because we just pressed the life out of them. Yeah. And we attacked, we went forward, there was urgency in everything we did, taking throw-ins, urgency, corners, urgency. I'm all about urgency, you know what I'm like. I love urgency, I love quick thing, and we just went at it. And fair play to the players. If they got that after 2 sessions, I'm even at halftime, I'm saying to myself, here's the bad news: they're not going to be able to keep it up, because I don't think we're mega fit. And I've been kind of moaning about this for months. I don't think we're as fit as we should be. And I was really worried, but I didn't care if we lost the second half. Just that first half alone, I was delighted with, because I thought, okay, that's a sample of what we can do. And if we condition the players to play to that, and it might take a while, I still think it'll be really, really good and enjoyable to watch. So he lined up a 4-2-3-1 and playing with wingers again. And yeah, we were very good in the first half. And then probably the 60th minute, we ran out of fucking steam, like pressing wise, So we weren't in Cardiff's area as much as we were in the first half.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we then just defended like doggedly, like brilliantly, like fair play to the team. They just dug in, and they knew they were out of puff, and the manager made subs at the right times, and you could tell people were running on empty. That high press in the first half and wiped a lot of them out. And all I can say is that Cardiff really didn't have many shots that Bassey had to be Gordon Banks on. Bassey did what Bassey does really well, caught everything that went into the box. The two centre halves dealt with everything that went into the box. The full backs defended. The wingers in front of them defended. Harry Leonard got off the mark. We've spoke about the one thing Luke was very surprised at was he was raving about Gustav and Harry from the training sessions. Particularly Gustav. He was like, why is this boy not scored goals? And I said, well, he only joined us in January. People forget. I said he's been with us 10 months, not 2 years. And I said, he's never really played with, he's either been on his own or played in EFL trophy games, but he's never really had a run with a Harry Leonard or with a JJ or with whoever else or Garbett. So I said, there is a player in there. So if you can unlock it, fucking fantastic. If you can get Harry scoring, we know how good Harry can be, technically all the fundamentals, and he took his goal really well. And everyone was good. The subs were good when they came on. They knew their jobs. There was just, I love the urgency, and how we played. It was refreshing. It was on the front foot. It wasn't long ball. It was passing. It was intricate. Everyone seemed to know what they were meant to do. After 2 sessions, that was great. Whether that's new manager bounce, players, working hard for the new manager, the usual stuff. Yes, there'd be an element to that. But I think the players we have will enjoy, this is a player's coach. It's one of the reasons I was really attracted to him 2 years ago. It's one of the reasons he was top my list this time. He's a player's coach. He's somebody the players will relate to, who will enjoy learning from. He will improve players individually. He will improve our young players. He'll do it trying to play the right way. It won't always come off, but you'll probably see more 5-4s than 1-0s, that type of thing. That's fine with me. That's what we're about. He understands that it's an entertainment game. We had less than 5,000 people there. That is symptomatic of how bad we've been at home this season.
I heard the 5,000 made as much noise, if not more noise.
They were brilliant. But we have to get our crowds back, because you pre-budget for X, and that was a real concern for me after Blackpool last week. I looked around an empty stadium. I was like, it was another one of the reasons I was like, we have to do something here. We can't go back to the days of 6,000-7,000. We've cracked 8 and 9 the last couple of years, and to suddenly go backwards, you're talking about 7 figures in adding to your deficit. That can't happen. So we have to entertain our crowd. We have to keep the crowd engaged, and you can't lose them. So I'm hoping as we start winning, as Luke starts putting across his style of play, and you're seeing it and you're enjoying it, regardless of the result, you're going to want to go see it. And I think people just lost the faith a little bit. They weren't enjoying what they were watching. We haven't been a good watch at home. Even in the wins, we haven't been a good watch at home. It's not been enjoyable. So Saturday was great. The crowd stayed with us. And I was really happy for the manager. I know he was like, after the game, himself and the assistant were driving all the way back towards like Wales to see their families for like 24 hours, and then coming straight back Sunday night, fair play. And then the players are all in on Monday. But I think they've got a lot of conditioning and a lot of work to do with the players. If they can, like we had an international break recently, I don't know if we're going to have another one, but if they can get the players 10, 15, 20% upwards before Christmas, I think we'll be very good. And I've said that a few times recently. I've always thought we had some very good players, but we just haven't, transferred it onto the pitch. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take time. I'm very excited, regardless this season, next season. I am very excited. I think there will be a good refresh. I think it was what we needed, as sad as I was last week doing it. Luke dedicated the win to Darragh. I thought it was very classy, and whatever. And I think we all have to now move forward and move on, because I don't want to be unfair to him either and keep referring back to Darren Ferguson. And, it's not fair to a new manager, So,
I mean, we got stuck with this a little bit with the podcast last week, isn't it? It's such a fine line between, respect
Correct.
for everything that Darren has done, with the fact that as a football club, you kind of got to look forward.
You have to. And it was the same thing that originally I was going to keep one of Darren's coaches. And then I woke up on the Sunday and made the decision, no, that's not fair to a new manager and his assistant. At the end of the day, I think you just have to go fresh.
Yeah.
And there's no coaches, and by your sports science, your physio, there's no coaches in the first team.
Excuses as well, right?
Correct.
You have forced somebody on somebody that could become an excuse.
And that person could be saying to Luke and Ryan, well, the gaffer would have done this, so the gaffer did this. No, he didn't do very well for the gaffer. No, there was a reason we didn't pick him. And it was almost like, come in fresh. Everyone gets an equal opportunity. It's up to the players to impress. He'll like some, he'll down the line think some aren't for him. That's the way it should be. And really what I said to him was, look, you've got 8 weeks to evaluate your squad, and it's a big squad, and we're over the cap. Because we didn't get rid of people on deadline day, we are over the cap. So we always knew we'd have to probably move on in a squad, probably in excess of 5 or 6 in January. So that's conversations now where I've said to the gaffer, you got a good 8 weeks, do your work. And then I'm obviously over in December. We'll have meetings, we'll have chats, me, you, Baz and Ryan, the 4 of us, we'll get together, we'll collaborate. And then we'll talk about what do you think you need in January and how are we going to make that space to make that happen. He might turn around and go, you know what, I need those 5 out, but I don't really need anyone in. Or, get 7 out and I need a couple in. And these are the ones I kind of, like and we come together on that. So, right now, because people talk about him being a back 3 manager and he played with a back 4 on Saturday, I actually think people are pegging the manager with where he was in different clubs and formations. I actually think he's very open-minded about a formation. You could argue on Saturday it was 4-2-1. At times it could have been a 4-diamond-2. At times it was, a 4-3-2-1. If that makes sense, you know what I mean. So he changed it. He changed the formation. I probably counted 1 too many.
I'm doing my math in my head.
Yeah. You know what I mean. If you looked at the midfield, you had Woods lined up as an 8, Archie as like a 6. You had JJ as a 10, but Woods was playing as a real progressive forward 8, but coming back into midfield with Archie. Archie was playing like 15 yards further forward. That was great to see. One of my biggest complaints, he's been like an extra centre half most of the season, and you're so far down the pitch. So, the wingers were doing, getting to the byline. It was great to see, like Lisby 3-4 times in the first 20 minutes has put a couple on the plate that we probably should have scored from. The fullbacks know their jobs. It was good to see. Again, don't harp backwards or slight, and there's no knocks or slights in previous managers. We have to look forward. I look forward to seeing us getting fitter. I look forward to seeing the players improve and playing with confidence. And for the players, I guess it's a fresh start for all of them. So now let's see their best work, because we haven't up until now. And, where we are and everything else has not been good enough. And, sorry, what are you laughing at?
It's funny, yeah. It's funny when you talk, not about your club, but when you talk to other clubs and losing a manager coming in and the players suddenly caring again, like how frustrating that is to you, as like the new manager bounce. And it's about, making sure that that's business as usual as opposed to it being a one-off, isn't it?
Yeah. And, yes, 100% new manager bounce and players suddenly start running through brick walls, and players who maybe thought they were never going to get in and suddenly up the tempo and training and, suddenly get on the squad and get off the bench and onto the pitch and all those things. It's like a fresh start for everyone. And that includes players who are out on loan potentially. Chris Con-Clark is ripping it up at Carlisle. And, he's made some daft tweets out there, which, my best advice to Chris would be, this guy here believed in you to spend 350 grand when no one else would to take you out of non-league. So keep doing your stuff on the pitch at Carlisle. Don't engage in Twitter, and just get your head down, because we still believe in you. That's why we paid a lot of money for you. And, and show the world why Peterborough United thought you were the next big one. You know what I mean? And but there's somebody again who Luke turns around and wants him, we could potentially bring him back. So as a 10.
Imagine same for Bradley when he gets fit as well.
Yeah, Bradley, I think, is out for a good period. I think he's done. Yeah. I think he's done for like 4. Yeah, I think he's had like a knee surgery. So, and the difference is there's no callback with Shrewsbury, and so we're leaving him with Shrewsbury. I think he's back before the end of the season, but he's out for the next few months. But again, next summer, you're absolutely right. We're going through the squad, strikers and players and everything else. So, yeah, it's basically a fresh chance for everybody. You know, and right now he's finding his feet. You know, like today, I think he's meeting the academy director for the first time because Dan was away in Holland last week, and our under-16s beat Ajax, you know, under-16s, and you know, a couple of days over there. So he's going to meet him. You know, the academy's a big part of the club. He's obviously been working with Simpson, a few of the coaches already been helping out. You know, and you know, if Luke needs a first team coach to come in, we can do that. If he wants to work with who he's got, that's fine. I've said to him, just assess everything. You know, no rush. You know, the club is set up in a really, really good way. I think he was pleasantly surprised at the quality of our players. You know, but I said it when we were doing the interview. I just said, look, I don't think we're bottom 5, bottom 7 League One side. You know, and it's not just about the money we've invested. I think there's high potential. But potential is like everything else. If you don't get potential out of people, you are what you are. So I said, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised at the talent level and technical level of the players. And one of the first things he did say to me was, technically, some very, very good footballers. So it's up to them now to get it out of them and to work with them. And you know, listen, it's game one. It's going to take a minute. It's going to take a couple of windows. You know, we've hired Luke and Ryan for the future to win us promotions and get us back to the championship. And, you know, it's not about relegation battles. It's not about if we're going to be in League Two, whatever else. As a football club, we want to refresh, and we feel this is the right refresh. So really, really excited by it, Phil. And yeah, really, really good guy.
Can you tell me why Luke? You know, you kind of the process of, you know, we spoke last Monday when the dust was still settling. I know you had some interviews that were going on after that. You know, I know that Luke's somebody you've admired for a long time because, you know, you've talked about it on the podcast, but why was kind of that the decision?
So it's funny. I nearly hired him about 6-7 years ago as a coach when he lost his job at Swansea, not as manager, as a coach. Russell Martin moved him on for whatever reason. I know for a fact he did a lot of the coaching for Russell Martin. So I don't know if whatever egos clashed, whatever. But at the time, we were looking for a first team coach. And I'd always remembered him when he was at Swindon. Even though it was other people were the managers and the front face, he was the one training the young squad of young players. And they had a really exciting team playing really progressive football. And we played them. And I'd given them a lot of compliments. And he actually told me in the interview, he hung up my notes on the coach to an away game that Swindon were going to show their players. And I followed him. He went to MK Dons. MK Dons hadn't sold players for a long time. Pete Winkman always wanted to model what we did. Luke went in as assistant manager with Russell. This is before he went to Swansea with Russell. And within a year, they'd sold Harry Darling. They'd sold the number 10 who went to Burnley. I forget what his name is. Really good player in the championship who's now at Bristol City. They sold players for millions for the first time. And it was no coincidence that Luke Williams was there. He then went to Swansea with Russell. He left Swansea. He then got his first shot at Notts County. When Darragh came back on a short-term stint, that was the season we shit the bed at Sheffield Wednesday away. He was only contracted to the end of that season. And he hadn't made the decision whether he wanted to stay. And he openly told me he was going to hopefully look for a championship job in the summer. He was using us as a platform. We were okay with that. And so I basically went about that last couple of weeks going into the playoffs. When we slipped into the playoffs, I got my gem scouts to do work on people I thought would suit us. Luke was high on the list. He was flying at Notts County. He was having his battle with Wrexham at the time, you know, to the most points in the National League. And I had my guys watch Notts County 5 times and doing a character analysis on Luke on the sidelines, watching his mannerisms, how he interacted with the players. We spoke to people in Notts County behind the scenes. And basically, that was going to be my guy. If Darren had said to me, I'm not staying, I'm leaving, I was going all out for Luke Williams. So obviously, he then went to Swansea. He was out of work. I'm not going to lie, again, at the end of last season, it was something I thought about. Because we had we won the cup, but we had a really poor season. And I thought, was it stale? And then I was like, I'm going to give my gaffer, it's one bad season, the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. But Luke was high on the list. So, and I knew he was on a short list for the Luton job. So one of the things as well, which pushed me last week was, I don't think he would have been out of work for long with the amount of jobs becoming available, some big clubs and everything else. So I was kind of like, there's 3 people on my list. There was him, and there was a couple of others I can't name out of respect. One was at a club lower down, and one was running an academy in the Premier League. They were the 3, and Luke was the top. So because he's out of work, easy to talk to, no permission needed. Had a really, really good conversation. I think it surprised him how much he enjoyed the conversation, because he probably had a perception of me. And, it was probably a 2-hour call. Then had another call, obviously. And then, Darren left, had a really, really long call. And then obviously he had his family to talk to. We negotiated directly with him. And then his assistant, which is really important to him. And I'd said to him, look, your assistant's got to come with you. Where is he? What's he doing? We had to deal with his agent. So it was kind of like verbally wrapped up on the Monday, but they didn't come down till the Wednesday to sign. Luke's got young kids, he's got a wife, she works, he's got to organize his life. I know, everyone was leaking stuff, and there was stuff, he saw he's done and he's coming tomorrow. Until he was there on Wednesday and signed, I'm never confirming anything, or, and obviously we have a leak at our club. Somebody is constantly leaking stuff to Alan Swan. It's quite apparent. It's been going like that since the summer. You know what I mean? Everything we do, whether it's transfers, whatever else, Alan Swan knows it. And, one of my missions is I'm going to weed that person out, and that person won't work at Peterborough. That'll be done before Christmas. I have an idea now who it is. You know what I mean? So because that just can't happen anymore at a football club. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it nearly hurt us a couple of times with transfer targets in the summer. And things like that can cost the club. So, and that's nothing. Alan Swan's just doing his job. He's a journalist. It's his job to have leaks and, have contacts and whatever else.
Say, I didn't hear that, I'm not going to run with it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, poor old Baz, I'd kind of barred Baz from speaking to Alan Swan, you know what I mean? Going back many months, you know what I mean? But unfortunately, someone else is just constantly just this, right down to, I let the coaches go on the Sunday, and that was out there. Right down to the Luke Williams thing, which was obviously he was favoured. It was out there in the press, but, and this is happening. It was just too close.
He's going to be on the training field tomorrow. And
if you can't trust people who work for you, who confidentially work for you, and the worst thing for that person is they won't work in football again, because once it gets out that they're leaking to local press, that'll follow them around. I don't know what's in it for them. I don't know why they think they're being clever, because he ain't paying them for the info. So I always find it astonishing. Do you know what I mean? That somebody would take that risk, because that's the end of your career in the game. So yeah. But anyway, so that's one thing. But so it was really a seamless process. It wasn't, the negotiations weren't difficult. I told him what we'd done the last few windows. He never made any demands, as regards to, well, are we going to do this in January? Are we going to do this in the summer? I told him who we are as a club. I mean, leave it to the BBC to do their interview, and it's like, this club's in serious debt, and, What the BBC didn't say was, but, they've spent millions of pounds in the transfer market the last few windows, world-class journalism as usual. I always find that, disingenuous. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to put a negative in a manager's mind straight away, and he handled it really well, I thought, you know what I mean? Like very, very well. And he knew what we'd spent, and he knew the players we bought. And he always knew that. He knew a lot about he wanted to buy 2 of our players when he was at Swansea. So he knew about our transfer model. And, they'd been watching, I think, 5 of our players, at Swansea. 3 of them they couldn't afford, 2 of them they thought they could come in and get. You know what I mean? So he knew what we do scouting-wise and everything else. And so that was really good. And it's a collaborative process. Him and Ryan, myself and Baz, we went through all of that. I have to say, because it's one of them frustrating things. Like, you take pelters, you take criticism, and I'm okay taking criticism. At the end of the day, no one's perfect and whatever else. I've been at the club nearly 20 years, and I always feel I've done my best. And I always feel like I've given this club something that they didn't have before I came. And whether it be promotions, trophies, relegations, excitement, but from a recruitment perspective, from a reputation, for what we do. And I'm listening to some of the stuff, and it's not that makes my blood boil. It's listening to people who I've helped, like, who've asked me to go on their podcasts, asked me to do this, asked me to do that. And I'm listening to 3 people having a conversation saying, any of us could have done Darragh's job for the last 20 years. He needs to step aside, and he needs to let people do this and do that. Any of us 3 could do it. Okay. So why hasn't every other club done it and got it? If they could hire 3 gobshites, yeah, to do it, why haven't all these other clubs done it? And it was one of them even said, and Peterborough have won 1 promotion in 10 years. Like, what divine right did Peterborough United have to be up there, going for promotion in League One 90% of the time?
Yeah.
You go back 10 years, I don't know, 7th, 6th, 4th, promotion. I mean, we're not talking about Peterborough were 18th in all those years, yeah?
No.
I'm sorry, and win 2 cups as well in that period, but only 1 promotion in 10 years. But what divine right do our football club with crowds of 7,000 to 8,000 people every week have in the leagues? And you've seen the strength of League One.
Yeah.
When I hear comments like that, I'm thinking, from mentally intelligent people with no brain cells making comments like that, I'm almost embarrassed for them. Like, embarrassed for them. And then to say that about me, to basically dismiss everything I've done for 20 years, that any 3 gobshites could do what I've done when I brought in our recruitment, everything that we've done as a club, and you just want to basically just go, dismiss it like that. The work, the hours, everything I've put in, the sacrifice, you just want to go like that. Like, with all due respect, it's not right. So, and in time, that'll be shown. Be careful what you wish for. That's what I would always say. And maybe at the moment I'm taking it too personally or being too sensitive, but I have a right to reply. And, some of those same people were like,
moaning last week, weren't there?
Yeah, a lot of missiles. Yeah, everyone wants to have a go. And I've seen that, like the local the local press, I haven't seen any tough questions asked for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tickling the manager's belly while we're sitting at the bottom of the league, after millions of pounds have been spent. There are teams around us in League One who didn't spend £10 who are winning games of football. But it's all about the recruitment. It's all about this. It's all about that. There's no way our football club should be where it is. But like, none of that. It's always about the financial situation of the club. It's about the recruitment. It's about, like, with all due respect, do your job. Like, you're an independent. You look from the outside in. You know yourself. If Bradford had spent £4 million in the transfer market in summer or whatever else, you'd expect to be first or second in League One.
I wouldn't be expecting to be where you are.
That's for sure. And people go, well, the recruitment was really bad. Really? Okay, run me through the recruitment. Because I would argue, no, we've signed some really, really good players the last couple of windows. And even last year, you can go on about whatever else. Like, quite a few of those players played in the win on Saturday that everyone was cheering for. Quite a few of those players are suddenly showing in year 2 that they're good players. And the good news for Luke as well is our left back we spent $500,000 on, who's never played for us, is going to play in the 21s game this week. Okay, Sam Hughes is fit in 3 weeks' time. Declan is now training, had an injection, is over the back end of his issue, hopefully, and will be available in the next couple of weeks. And in the training that Luke's had, he was one player Luke was raving about, by the way, was Declan. So those players are that we haven't had are coming back. Right now, we've got 4 wingers at the club for Luke, and 2 of them aren't fit. Keane Hayes and Declan. And he likes to play with wingers. So he's got 2. Again, that's not on me, to keep players fit or to whatever else. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we recruit players with good injury records.
Yeah.
What happens afterwards is not down to what we do.
Prerequisites, isn't it? Like, when you're looking at, we've talked about this before, when you're looking at players, it's all around like what age, what injuries they've got. And you're staying clear of those that have got an obvious kind of injury problems that followed them.
Yep. But the last 16, 18 months has just been a disaster. So many players and you couldn't even say they're muscle injuries, bad injuries. You know what I mean? Like 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year. So you're right. There were a lot of shots fired the last week. And, you guys put out the podcast we did with Rob. I texted you as I didn't even know it was out. And all of a sudden we're getting pot shots off somebody again who's part of another podcast who's just having pot shots. And fair play. There were a lot of Posh fans going, I don't know what you're talking about. It was a very good episode. There was nothing disrespectful. I think people, again, trying to blight us, discredit us to push another way. And it's like, we're not in competition here. Like, with all due respect, like, there is no competition. So I do find it humorous, you know what I mean? And like I said to you, there are people who've like asked me for favors and whatever else, and they just like, they're saying stuff that is so disrespectful. Have a go. Be respectful, like, with all due respect. But don't come for somebody that you want things from. Don't come for somebody that you need, whatever else. So, because trust me, this won't be forgotten. And I have a long memory. So equally, I know the players, we will win again. We will go again. We will rise again. There's no doubt about it. I've been doing this 20 years. A lot of the players we've signed are bloody good players for this level. As much as everyone wants to make it out about bad recruitment, I've just been going through the squad today because I was sending over the manager. He wanted a full diagnostic on wages, contracts, expiry dates, everything. I mean, we've got a very big squad. The amount of times I wrote down 400 grand, 500 grand next to play, that we'd spent on players. It's for a club our size. So don't tell me that Peterborough United was doing this before me, because they weren't, and possibly won't be long after me. So, enjoy it. So yeah, that's where I'm on that.
When you win the Champions League on Football Manager, it's easy to throw, pot shots about how you can do it easier.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, that's one of the things I learned in doing the podcast is, you have a perspective on the outside of that's very different from the reality, when you kind of learn about it. And
of course,
that's what we try and do with the podcast. Open that up.
Open it up. And that's what Natalie said to me last week, my wife. She'd read somewhere or whatever else about, like, I'd made a comment 20 years ago when I first bought Peterborough United. I play Championship Manager or whatever else. Like, really, I mean, come on. I mean, if you people throwing that at you 20 years later, like, and to be fair to Luke, he spoke to lots of people in the game, including ex-managers who'd worked for me, and he was astonished at the feedback he got. He was expecting to get, lunatic, this, that, whatever. Like, he was really, really surprised at how supportive it came back to even managers I fired that never in the dressing room, doesn't interfere, really supportive. Yes, a hard taskmaster and what he wants and da-da-da-da-da. But if you want a player, he gets you a player. Like on one of the interviews, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been someone from the Telegraph, and apologies if I've got this wrong. They used the word, I'm divisive.
Okay.
Divisive in what way? Like, I don't get why you're interviewing the manager for the first time and you want to ask him, what about the chairman who can be divisive?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the right thing to do? I mean, I don't quite understand what you're trying to get, what soundbite you're trying to get there. You know what I mean? So, yeah, in fairness, he dealt with it well. But again, like, show some respect for me too. Like, divisive in what way? Like, I've been nothing but divisive. What? Because I have a podcast. And we talk about the football club, and we talk about whatever else. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, crikey. But hey, how? Listen, it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, all I'm here to do is support a manager, pay the bills for a club that loses millions every year, and do what many other people didn't want to do long before I came. So and hopefully that will lead to more promotions and more success. So that's the key thing.
So to wrap up on kind of this part of the conversation, did you give any goals to Luke for the season?
Oh yeah, playoffs. No, I said to Luke,
win every game from here.
No. I said to him, I said our goals are the same every year in League One. Have a promotion tilt, win the EFL trophy, and score 100 goals. And if we get close, we get close. And I didn't even use the word entertain. I just said, look, you've seen the way we've been playing. It's not enjoyable. I don't love watching it. Our fans don't like watching it. I see the gates. We are famous for scoring goals. We are famous for trying to entertain. We are famous for playing football the right way. I told him we generate sales. We have to generate 4 or 5 million every year in transfer sales. If that's one player, 2 players, that's who we are. But the good news is we'll spend millions in the transfer market as well. It's not like we take the money, pay the bills, don't buy any players, as shown again this summer. But I said to him, we'd like to three-peat in the trophy. It's a trophy that we all love. And I was like, give it your best shot this season. Whether that leads to top end of League One, League Two, just do your best. And, this isn't a 5-minute appointment. This isn't for 10 games. This isn't for 20 games. This is for long term. This is, we want to, it's not a rebuild. We just want to go again with a new manager, fresh ideas, and improve everybody. And we've got some great people off the pitch doing a great job. And I felt for them as well, commercial, ticketing. They've been struggling with what's been going on the pitch. So again, I want us to to basically join together, be successful on the pitch, help those off the pitch be successful, and give it your best shot. And I said to him, I will do my utmost, myself, my partners, the other shareholders of the club, we will do our best to support him as best we can within the rules to do what we can do. But most importantly, give him the freedom to do his thing. Like, I've got no interest in picking a team. I've got no interest, you know what I mean, in having those conversations, contrary to what people think. He knows what's expected from him. We have high standards. Of course we do at Peterborough. Even at the bottom of League One, 5 points adrift or whatever else, we expect to win games of football. And we showed on Saturday, we played one of the best teams in League One and we won 1-0. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a comfortable win, but I wouldn't say we were battered by Cardiff. Cardiff are a very, very good team, like very good team. And we played really well. And if we play to our potential, like I keep saying, we'll win a lot of games of football. If we keep falling below our own standards, we're going to lose games of football. And that's the thing about football. So all I'll say right now is for the fans, get behind the new manager, regardless what you think of me. And I'm sure there'll be a whole episode now on another podcast about my comments and whatever else, because they need something to talk about. Just get behind the manager, get behind the club. That's the most important thing. I feel we've recruited the best person. I feel lucky. Like people were like surprised. Reading had a vacancy. I was kind of worried about them when we were speaking to Rob. So I kind of reassured to know they'd hired their guy. But I feel we've got one of the best. And I feel like we could do some special things. And, I haven't done anything special without Fergie. And it's time to fix that. And that starts now.
All right. Well,
on to your beloved Bradford.
Yeah, so on to us. I believe we played in the FA Cup this weekend, but I wouldn't know it given the fact that the FA's broadcast rules seem to stem from before the invention of the television.
Phil,
so
I had to have our game filmed and sent on a YouTube link to me. Like, there was no stream. Like, I cannot believe I went on, I think it was it Paramount or was it ESPN? ESPN had the FA Cup.
ESPN has the FA Cup.
Why not put them all on? Like, why have 4 or 5 games? Why not put them on? So you have to subscribe to ESPN Unlimited or whatever else to you already paid to have all the games. There's a feed at every game. Just stick them on. And even Chris, who does our VIP stream or whatever else, was just like, Darragh, they're like, this is like last year. Like the year before last, whoever did it used to send us streams. I forget who it was. It was ITV or whatever. But now he's like, no, there's no stream. So we have to film the game. Like, it's so frustrating. Well, for you, even more frustrating.
I mean, that's where we were going, was like, well, can we FaceTime it off my mum's TV, so I can watch it that way? But, she couldn't get the video. And in the end, we were doing stuff with the kids. So I would be driving and listening. So I couldn't even listen. So, like I say, I kind of didn't care that we, as a supporter, that we lost, because it's as if this competition doesn't even exist.
You lost the challenge.
I'd been willing to pay whatever it costs to pay to watch that game. So there's a market there to monetize, and
stupid.
They still don't do it.
Do you know how many Bradford fans would have paid to watch that game? Like, I just don't understand it, because it was at Cheltenham, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how many people travelled? 2,000?
I think there's about 500.
Oh, only 500. Okay. So how many people would have bought and paid a tenner to watch the game?
Thousands, probably.
I don't understand. Well, look, I'm not going to get into the dispute with who has the rights to the FA Cup or whatever else, but like I said to you about our end in America, to have ESPN have the rights to all the games and only show the ones that are being televised made no sense whatsoever. Like, no sense, Phil. So did you play badly? Did you read the reports? Was it just a bad game?
So we had 28 shots and didn't score one of them, which is probably, sums up the game. They scored in the first minute. Pretty controversial. It was a free kick from outside the area, just out wide. So one that just gets swung in for a cross. So everyone sets up. Guy goes, kicks the ball. Just as he kicks the ball, the referee blows his whistle. And so 3 of their players stop. 2 or 3 of our players stop. Everyone thinks, okay, the ref's blown for something. Ball comes over, man on his own, because now everyone's stopped in the box, heads it in. Referee says that's a goal.
Even after he blew the whistle already?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so that was the first second minute, and everyone's going pretty crazy about that. It ended up Graham Ideson got sent off
Oh no.
after the game for still arguing it. I think they were claiming there were two whistles, and the referee said there were two whistles, and one of them wasn't mine. But you actually see, and you can listen back. There's one whistle, it's his. It's just after the ball is kicked,
Right.
And so he's lying. I think he's a ref that's been plucked from non-league for this game.
Right.
Completely out of his depth. But then we had 28 shots and we didn't score any of them. So we had 89 minutes to score 2. Which we obviously didn't do.
So you've had now, is it 4 draws in the league in a row? 4 draws, and obviously this loss, and you've scored, is it 3 goals in 5 games?
Let's see. So we got
a few of those draws were like
0-0 against Stevenage, 2-2 against Barnsley.
Fair enough.
I forget what the other one was, but yeah, it's and we've had shots aplenty. I think in the Barnsley game we had 26 shots, and we scored 2 in that one.
Is anyone missing? That's normally like being okay. There are people missing. Okay, I was wondering what. It's not that you're in a shit run. I mean, it's great that you're actually drawing, not losing. And that's not really, because you've played some bloody good teams. You've played Lincoln, you've played Stevenage, you've played Barnsley. I mean, these aren't teams that are like cannon fodder in League One. So whilst you're losing players, you're not losing the games. You're drawing them. So who have you missed? Who's been key in this run?
So we had, I think it was the Lincoln and Stevenage games, and Stevenage actually was 1-1. It wasn't 0-0, I think, from memory now. But because we scored in like the 3rd minute of that one, and then they came back, and we probably each one of these we could look at each one of those games and say we should have won that game.
Gotcha.
We're not looking at them thinking, well, we got out. We got lucky with that and got a point.
Nobody paced
look at them all as we should have won them, but we had. For the Stevenage and Lincoln, we had the back 3 out and the front 3 out.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So,
okay.
We've been having, there's been injuries. There's been some rotation, but a lot of not really long-term injuries, but, just enough that's going to put somebody out for a couple of weeks. And it just happened to like 6 or 7 of the team all at the same time.
Okay.
So they're all starting to come back.
Is that anything to do with the style, the press, the graft that's gone into the start of the season? Has it caught up with a few of the players? Is it wear and tear? Is it like bodies? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I know that's one of the reasons why he has the squad he has. Why he was very focused on, I want 20 players and I want every single one of them to know everybody else's job. And so he has done a good job of rotating. But even when he's been rotating, he's been talking about players, not happy that they're not in the squad, but we're telling them that, look, your time will come because this is going to happen. So I think it's just wear and tear. It's probably a few players needing a breather for a couple of weeks. Yeah. And
so nothing you're concerned about?
Not really. I mean, there is some frustration. Who knew that I would be talking like this, right? There's some frustration that there were winnable games that we drew, and you look at and you think, well, actually, if we'd have got what we could have done from those
top
games,
of the league,
yeah, exactly, and top of the league by a few points. It's so kind of close and tight now in that top 7, within a point or 2 of each other. Yeah, there was probably a chance to put a stake in the ground and pull a little bit ahead of that. And so we kind of 4 draws, and we're in amongst the runners and the riders. Yeah, but everyone's really bunched up. So there is I am frustrated a little bit about missed opportunity. But we do need to get back to winning ways to show that it's just.
If you lose the next game, will you start panicking?
Yeah, well, panicking is, I don't know, but we've got Burton. So, every game is a tough game. Like,
where is the game?
It is away. I thought it was a home, but I just see on the notes here it says it's away. So I'm going to go and just double check that.
Yeah, that'll be a toughie.
I would obviously prefer it to be at home because our home record is kind of intact. But when we look at this Stevenage, Stevenage hadn't dropped a point at home all season.
Yeah,
it's at home. We've got
it's at home
on Saturday.
Okay.
So and then it's Plymouth away and Bolton away.
Ooh, you definitely want to be beating Burton than before those two away trips. No, so it's like, yeah.
But Stevenage hadn't dropped a point at home all season, and we got a draw there, and probably were disappointed not to win.
Okay.
So, I think we're still performing well. We just haven't been, what's the word? Like, just up front, we just haven't converted the chances that we've had.
Yeah, prolific enough when needed, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But I can't complain too much.
Yeah, no, of course not. It's a fantastic start. So, at the end of the day, everyone's going to have a little bit of a slip when you're in the top. It doesn't go plain sailing the whole season. So sometimes you have a few ropey results, and then you got to go again. So that's what teams do who want to win promotion.
And I'm just looking for the table to see quite how scrunched up it is here. We have let's see. Of course, now there's no table in my notes, but it's like 2 points separating. Here we go. So we've got like 23 points. Bolton in 7th, goes up to Stockport now, who are top with 28 points. So 5 points there. But there's a couple that have played less than us in that top 6 or 7. Stockport look good, as we've talked about. Now they've kind of taken that top spot. I think it's going to take a lot to wrestle that away from them.
I do too. And obviously we had our man on from Stockport a few episodes ago, and they've gone on, they've been flying, haven't they? So it'll be very, very tough to shift them, and Mark will be very excited. So, but fair play, you know what I mean? They're carrying on from last season's playoffs, and they look like one of the strongest teams right now in League One. Yeah. So I think if they carry on like this through Christmas, that'll be a gallop. So so you can just smell it. About Stockport, so fair play.
Yeah, they've kind of bid their time, and they had some disappointing results as far as he was concerned, but they were always in and about.
He was confident. He was confident. He was confident what he was watching. So what about the other league? What's to discuss before we sign off?
So where are we? So in the Premier League, we have Wolves sacking their manager today. Which seems
it was yesterday. Yesterday, they let him go. Yeah, he obviously was at 2 seasons in a row. They haven't won in the first 10 games, so problematic. He just signed a new deal. And
I think he's saying he should probably have left in the summer when he saw some of the sales and was concerned about squad strength. And will he get another job in the Premier League?
I don't know if he get another job in the Premier League, but I think he did a good job with them. Do you know what I mean? Keeping them up last year. Now, I haven't seen much of Wolves this year. They've scored goals. They've lost a lot of goals. They've lost a lot of late goals. So it'll be interesting. Did I see Gary O'Neill could be going back in there? Fascinating result yesterday was Man City beating Bournemouth. Bournemouth with an unbelievable start to the season. So that was a result. My mighty Reds finally won. First time since the old King died. So that was good to see.
The Army Out Brigade can give it a break for a couple of weeks.
I mean, that is so ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, to see crap like that. He went back to pretty much the team from last year. Do you know what I mean? So, the one against Villa, 90% of that team was basically like bar Ekitike, and who else was in there? I think it was pretty much all the players from last year were in that team. It's going to take a minute. It's going to take a while, to get all these new players up to speed. And he's just going to have to rely on the players from last year and get McAllister back to his best and hope Ekitike can score goals, get Salah back to his best. Look, Liverpool ain't winning the league this year. I think it is Arsenal or Man City's league. I still think Man City will win it. But I think we're going to be stronger after this season. There's no doubt about it. And they've had a challenge, and it's been challenging run of games and losing in the League Cup. But, I was never of that mind of Arnie slot out. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, it's ludicrous. So, but it'll be fine. It was a very good win against Villa, and Villa were actually doing very well until they played us. So, I think a couple of more results like that buys them time, bed those new players in, play a few of them in the Champions League, not against Real Madrid, but in some of the other games and whatever, and get players back from injury. And Liverpool going into January, February will be a very, very strong beast. Probably a little bit too far back from Arsenal, and Arsenal look like they're never going to lose another game of football. Do you know what I mean? So it's it'll be interesting to see. The real test will be Madrid this week, and then Man City. Come through those games, and then you're starting to come through the other side of that. So that will be interesting. Do you know what I mean? So, and then we have the Championship. I think still lost his job at Southampton.
Yes, he lost his job. Where do you stand on Still?
Never rated him. Never. You know, did okay temporarily in charge of France. Then he got another job. I thought, you know, a young manager, a lot of hype around him. If there was ever a club to go into, you think Southampton was a great gig, good squad. Yes, they sold players and came down, but still should have been one of the front runners. Best thing they could do is go back to Russell Martin.
Yeah.
You know, if I were them, won the promotion from that league before. Obviously, like young players, stylistically. But yeah, still for me, I think just one of them that was just highly rated for the sake of being highly rated. You get it a lot of the time, but I didn't think he was any great shakes. You know what I mean? Had a decent spell when he first went in as caretaker manager, and then obviously got a permanent job, and I think he got the sack, and then he got the Southampton job. So is what it is.
You think he'll have to start lower down the pyramid? I mean, still in the EFL.
No, he'll probably get a European job. You know, I would imagine. I'm not sure he's going to get he'd want to take a job down the pyramid. I can't see him dropping into League One or League Two, and anyone looking at that would be like, well, Jesus, he's nearly taken Southampton down to the relegation zone in the Championship. So, do we want to invest that kind of money in him for, you know, League One or whatever else? So, it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
You're talking about one of your teams in Liverpool. How about the shenanigans at Celtic this week? So with Brendan getting the boot, but also the statement that followed it. Usually these things are kept under the carpet a little bit, and I can only imagine some of the statements that you might have wanted to have published with some of your previous managers.
I think he's just pissed off the ownership, and I think his press conferences have just like pushed it to a point, you know. And Brendan's one of them. If he's not happy, he uses the press to get his point across, and I hate that managers. I don't like managers talking through the press, you know, in a certain way. He made a reference to, it was like driving a Honda, was it? And you know, and it was about his players, but it was like basically like a euphemism of, you know, he's got a Honda, but he's expected to play, you know, drive it like a Maserati, you know, kind of thing. And I just, you know, I think he cleverly did that. I you know, didn't come across well. Wasn't a good look. You know, and who's gonna? Maybe he goes to Southampton. Who knows? But you know, it's an interesting one. So yeah, it was poor from him. And I've usually been a Brendan Rodgers fan.
Now, we didn't get a chance to talk about it because of the pod we had last week. But just as we were recording Sheffield Wednesday, went into administration, which ordinarily, you know, administration is not obviously something to aspire to, but in Sheffield Wednesday's case, it feels like it could really be the beginning rather than the kind of end of something.
Yeah, I read yesterday Mike Ashley sniffing around. Money up, and yeah, listen, great owner. I know he got a lot of crap at Newcastle, but he took Newcastle back to the Prem and took them down, took them back, left them in a good spot, got them great new owners. You know, he'd be perfect for Sheffield Wednesday. I don't see what the problem is. At the end of the day, you got somebody who'll always pay his bills, somebody who will, if they come down to League One, you know, again, they'll have a chance of winning that league, a bit like Birmingham did.
Birmingham style, right.
Yeah. So this might turn out to be a really, really good thing for Sheffield Wednesday and its fans. You know, because there's no doubt they have to move on and they've had the shit kicked out of them. But I don't worry for Sheffield Wednesday, like I didn't worry for Derby. You know, again, I've always said this, the big clubs will bounce back. You know, they're too big to go out of business and they will climb again.
Mm-hmm. What else we got going on in the last few minutes? We have a question from Daniel. Daniel said, watching the FA Cup this weekend made me think, is it more lucrative to lose in the FA Cup first round against a minnow, but it's on TV, or get to the third round, but you're knocked out in a game that isn't on TV?
Yeah, the TV's not that much. It's like 75 grand. So if you get to the third round, you're going to clear about 100 grand in prize money. So you're better off getting to the third round. And then the beauty of the third round is like we pulled Leeds, you know, not so long ago, and we pulled Man City. You know, you can get a 500 grand payday if you get the right club in the third round. So you know, I'm a big believer. You don't want to go out to a minnow. You want to get to the third, preferably get to the fourth round, because then you know the prize money for the third round you're clearing $250,000, and then you get a decent one in the fourth round. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to get a Premier League club, you know, that's not going to, they're going to batter you, and you ain't going to have a chance of winning, and the gate's going to be shit. And we've done that a few times over the years. You know what I mean? So, you know, you want to get a Chelsea, you want to get a Leeds, you want to get a Man City. You know, I've been waiting for United and Liverpool for 20 years, and it's never going to happen. So, you know, they're the dream ties. So, but you got to get there first. So, I think the draw's today for us. So, I'm hoping we get a favourable draw after Cardiff. You know what I mean? The last thing we need is another one of those. So, we need a favourable draw, and we need to do our job.
Didn't I see some crazy stat, and I can't remember how many years, but how many
16.
How many times in a row you've made it to the second round of the
16,
FA Cup?
yeah. Yep. It can't be a coincidence. I've been the owner in that period of time now.
So, I mean, for us, like we maybe get to the second round once in 20 years.
Yeah.
You're doing it 16 years.
We don't put it in any cash flow budget every year, but we make it clear to management that, you know, the cups are a way for us to reduce any deficit. The cups are a way for us to clear a bit of cap space and have a bit of extra income. And, you know, you've got to take them seriously. So whilst you might be sitting there going, look, I'm happy Bradford are out and there's no you know, sometimes it's good to have that excess money you might need. You know, Bradford might have needed to win those 2 rounds, get an extra few £100,000 in the kitty for January in case your manager needs backing to go again. So, you know, and that's off the table now. So, you know, that's one of the things about you've got to be professional, because if you're not, like we nearly shit the bed last year. Was it Newport? We were 2-0 down. You know, we had to come from behind against quite a few clubs from League Two because we weren't switched on from the start. So, you know, clubs from any of those levels, even non-league now, they're professionally run clubs. And, you know, you've got a problem. If you don't switch on, take it seriously, you're going to get thumped. So, you're beaten. No.
Last question, then we can wrap up for today, is from Paul. Paul's a Posh fan. He says, if you pay money for a player and their career is cut short by injury, does the club lose out on that money paid, or the insurances that repay all or a percentage of what's being paid?
No, you have to pay for the player. And, you know, unless you go and take insurance, which is very expensive for League One and League Two clubs, it's a question I have asked this summer because of what's happened with Rio and other players and stuff like that. I have asked the question that, you know, maybe we, for the big signings, the $500,000 plus signings, we need to start paying insurance to protect ourselves so that we do get compensated if there's an issue as with the player. So, yeah, great question. But the answer is at the moment, we don't take insurance in those things because it would be so expensive. And touch wood, we've been fortunate. The majority of the big signings we made over the years, you know, haven't had career enders. You know, big signings. We've had a couple of signings. We paid maybe $100,000 or whatever, and a player's done his knee or yeah, you know. So, but I have to look at it and weigh it up. You know what I mean? So you don't want those kind of injuries for players. But good question.
Is that something that the bigger clubs, you know, that are doing the Premier League signings?
Without a doubt. Like tragedies. You look at Jota, you look at Liverpool. You don't want to say, but I dare say Liverpool had 40-50 million pound insurance payout, you know, and life insurance and all those things. All the clubs would have their assets, their big assets, so they would have to insure against anything happening to those assets. So 100%. Do you know what I mean? It's just lower league down because it's just we don't have the money. We don't do that. So a bit like last week, we spoke about Rob being the only guy who had a pandemic insurance policy before COVID.
Right.
So it's like you know,
he had his insurance and he's got his points per game to get himself in the player.
Don't even start me on that. But yeah, you know. Anyway, good way to end the episode.
All right, I got some stick last week for not bringing that up. It's like I don't want to be the referee in a fight. You know, I want a nice civil conversation.
I never blamed Rob. You know, at the end of the day for that. So yeah, 100%.
You got to look after your club, don't you?
Of course you do.
All right. Well, let's call that one a wrap then today. Thank you as always, everybody, for joining and listening. Keep the questions coming in. You can email us at contact@hardtruthfootball.com. And just a reminder that these episodes are out there on YouTube as well as listening to them on the podcast link. In fact, we had, I don't know, last time I looked was 7,000 or 8,000 on last week's just on YouTube alone. So
more. Rob's one's cleared 11,000.
11,000.
That was a record one. Mark from Stockport previous was 7. Mark's you know, an 11. So I think between now YouTube and the pod, I think we're up to now like 20 to 25,000 listeners, you know, on the pod, which is great, you know, for something that's been going 6 seasons. So love that. Thank you very much for tuning in.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you again next week and have a great week, everybody.
You too, guys.
Thank you.